Guys. So, in lieu of trying to have a virtual classroom that has never worked during this whole fiasco of the pandemic and everything, we're just going to do this videos. And I know we are halfway done, and it seems like we're a little stuck on the whole sandbox situation. And I don't know how to access it. It looks like it's I don't know that much about Sandbox to access it and what potential ramifications could be if we make an error on a website that's already live. So we're going to approach this a different way. I still want us to do Wisteria as our focal project, but what we're going to do is just create, I guess, a new website using as much prefab as possible, meaning themes, plugins, excuse me, widgets and all of that, and taking the information that is on the sandbox that we can see and applying that. So it's probably going to be a lot of copy and paste for the content, grabbing the images, and we'll go from there. So to get ready for this, there's going to be some assignments that's going to be built in through this that are required to be done. And it's based off this website of NonProfit WP, Start to Finish WordPress Guide for Nonprofits. This was actually a recommendation from Brandon, which is he's one of the co-hosts for the Athens WordPress meetup. So what I want you guys to review is WordPress and website glossary. I know it's just a bunch of terminology, but the terminology, is going to help you have some understanding of what the things are. So there will be a quiz. Multiple attempts are fine based off this particular webpage. Okay. So let's see. Then we go down to talking about planning a nonprofit website. And some of this is at the intended audience is the actual nonprofit and not the web developer. So this is directed at the nonprofits, like the pros of them doing a DIY, not DUI, DIY, do-it-yourself WordPress, the pros and the cons, the questions to ask. So I want you to review this because I want you to get a perspective from the client, what the questions they could be asking, how their mind works, what's their thought process. And sometimes they may miss something that you're going to learn from here. And like a question might help you have a question to ask that's going to help produce and help them give you an answer that's actually going to be meaningful and help you as a developer creating the final product. Here's some tips, and here's some other resources. So again, this particular section I think is aimed more at the nonprofit itself. Why would they want to work with a volunteer? The constraints, try to find ways to compensate, and the collaboration. And this is good reading as well. And should you work with a consultant? It's oftentimes a good idea to try to get in the other person's head, especially if it's going to be a client, just to kind of get their way of thinking and ask the right questions, build a relationship. So on this one, it's like, why would you want to hire a consultant? And these could be selling points. Like whenever you're trying to sell your services, it's like, this is what we offer when you have a consultant, as opposed to if you were trying to do it yourself. Let's see. How requests for proposals work, RFPs. So it talks about if you're a small nonprofit, considering skipping the RFP when looking to get your next website built. So even though it may or may not be something that a nonprofit would do, like sometimes certain organizations, especially government or schools or Those kinds of organizations where they have a lot of red tape, they have to just make sure they cross all their T's and dot all the I's. They may actually be required to have multiple proposals before accepting one particular bid, a request for proposal. So if so they may have to go through the motions even if they already know who they're going with. But anyways, so this, I can't remember if this link worked or not. Nope. Okay. Some of the links in here are broken. Okay. And again, this is aimed at the target audience is the actual nonprofit. Okay. So domain and hosting. So they have some recommendations. With WordPress, there's a database, I believe, component that needs to be built into it. And that can get a little complicated with AWS, and it may end up costing more than what is preferred. So we're going to kind of not do the AWS route and utilize some of the other resources that are maybe more inclined to be, built for nonprofits. And when I say built for nonprofits, I mean they're relatively inexpensive. So then there's self-hosted versus WordPress.com. WordPress.com is like you don't have the dashboard. It's like it's self-hosted on. See, self-hosting, that throws me off. I think of self-hosting as something like WordPress hosted itself on WordPress.com, but they're saying self-hosting is, but the way their interpretation of self-hosting is like the developer or the client hosts it. So I can see how they do it. It doesn't flow with my way of thinking. So WordPress.com is hosted on WordPress. WordPress.org is self-hosted, meaning like the developer or the client or somebody has to obtain hosting services from some party, AWS or whoever. So talks about WordPress.org and then WordPress.com. And then this is where, especially if we're not able to get into the sandbox, which it doesn't look like we're going to be able to in any way that I'm aware of. If you guys know a way, please share. We're going to look at themes because it looks like we may just, be starting over and getting the basic components of the website. Maybe not all the content and all the tabs, but hopefully we can if we do enough collaboration, but we'll see. So it gives some recommendations on some themes. So we're going to stick with free. And talks about modifying a theme. I think probably go into child themes. So it talks about how you can customize the themes. And we're also going into plugins, recommended plugins. So we can, do a review of those, see what's recommended, and apply those as needed. Plugin limit, I was thinking I was told 10 was as many as you wanted to go. So, but it depends. A plugin is not a plugin. A plugin is not a plugin. It's not a plugin. Okay. Just be aware, the more plugins you have, the more it can bog it down. So, that's just like the caveat. It's like it may provide, some additional features and stuff that we like, but it may also bog it down. So that's something to take in consideration. Enter your content. So block editor is the newer version of WordPress. Okay, so it gives you some information on that. Search engine optimization. You guys should have done that Yoast certification that talks about SEO by now. You know, some information on that. Images, media, and embeds. So again, information about that. Blogging best practices. Information about that. So not all of this you necessarily will be applying because you're not going to blog on the website. But website accessibility is always something to be aware of. And talks about the themes. So we want to make sure that we choose a theme that is accessibility ready, just to save ourselves some time and customization. Keeping a site healthy. You can do a review of this.
What are you doing?
Oh, making a video.
Hyper.
Okay, I forgot where I was at. But just like, keeping your site healthy. So I want you guys to review these components in here, 0 through 5, and play with the resources, and hopefully, let's see what's in there. And hopefully it's either we'll figure out how to access the sandbox, or we're going to start over from scratch using all of the prefab stuff we can. Again, this website, I believe, is aimed more for nonprofits themselves, but there might be some good info in here. So in lieu of the class, trying to attempt virtual classes, this is your assignment class video, whatever you want to call it, for Web Dev for Nonprofits for next week. And we'll be communicating on Discord on it's either figuring out how to access Sandbox or start over with a new theme. Trying to mimic as much as possible, but trying to find a style that they want, a theme that they want that's as close to they already have, but again, is prefabbed as much as possible, so we don't have to spend too much time customizing it, short of just like the menu items and the content and stuff like that. So that's that. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.